Before you listen to this BBC podcast, I want to tell you why I love podcasting. Hi, my name's Tommy Dixon, and I make podcasts for the BBC. I'm a big fan of stories, always loved a good book. But when I started commuting for my first job, I discovered podcasts. I was blown away by how a creative idea and the right mixture of sounds could take you into a whole new world full of incredible stories. You know, the type that make you go, wow. And that kind of inspired me to give it a go myself, which, to cut a long story short, led to a BBC training scheme and a whole new career giving other people that exact same feeling. So if you want to hear amazing stories that make you go, wow, like I did, they're just a tap or a click away on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, your essential whistle-stop guide to everything you need to know about the game in this country. It's Friday the 16th of February. I'm Martin Dowden, and coming up...
Hugo with the effort, he scored! Dessers with the header, goal!
With the title race neck and neck, can Celtic and Rangers pass tough tests this weekend? Also, is VAR adding value and accuracy to the game in Scotland?
Why would you want to get into something that factually does improve decision making in the game?
And we'll hear about a massive weekend in the SWPL with the top two going head to head on Sunday.
At Ibrox, you can't ask for more in terms of a top of the table clash, and it's going to be huge.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
I've got a couple of keepers for you today. Former Scotland international women's goalkeeper Gemma and two for the price of one, former Killie, Rangers and also Scotland men's goalie Cammy Bell. Welcome to you both.
Good morning.
Welcome. Plenty to get through with Cammy and Gemma, but just quickly, who's the best keeper in Scotland for you at the moment? Cammy, you go first.
For me, it's got to be Jack Butland. I think when I look at the way that he's joined the club, and especially such a hero of Alan McGregor retiring and a fantastic goalkeeper, and he's just filled his boots so easily, and he's been absolutely brilliant for Rangers this season and key to where they are in the league at this moment in time.
Gemma, for you?
I mean, I wouldn't disagree with what Cammy said, but I would throw in, there's been a couple of good performances in there in the Women's League. I was going to say Alexander, she's married now, she'll kill me for that. Lee Gibson. So Scotland number one, but it's been under pressure in terms of new goalkeepers coming into that space and has really risen to the task. So some really good. It's great to see though. It's great to see the level of goalkeeping that we currently have here in Scotland.
I'll tell you the worst goalkeeper is a guy I play fives with. He's absolutely honking and he can't run. But anyway, I won't name him because he'll absolutely kill me. Moving on. 13 decisions have been deemed to be incorrect by the Scottish FA's VAR independent review panel during the second round of Premiership fixtures. Despite that, referee chief Crawford Allen insists it's adding value and accuracy to the game. Aberdeen are reported to be in talks with Canadian international Junior Hoylett, who's played under Neil Warnock at 3 different clubs and is a free agent after leaving Vancouver Whitecaps. Dundee United boss Jim Goodwin insists there's more pressure on Championship title rivals Raith Rovers as the two sides prepare to meet at Starks Park tonight. That game will be live on Sports Scene on the BBC Scotland channel from 7:30. That's one of at least 3 top-of-the-table clashes this weekend in Scotland, with Falkirk and Hamilton set to meet in League One on Saturday and Rangers facing Celtic in the SWPL on Sunday. OK, firstly, we'll not spend too long on this, but we had the Scottish FA's VAR independent review panel report yesterday. 13 decisions deemed incorrect, but Crawford Allen says it's adding value and accuracy and is improving the game. Do you agree with Crawford Allen, Gemma?
Look, I think when we didn't have VAR in the game, there was a call for VAR to come into the game and use technology. There's always unintended consequences when you implement new technology, and I think there's two clear distinctions here. There's what we hear all the time, which is the factual, which is onside, offside. It's where we can draw a line, and whether or not you agree with camera angles or whether or not you think a blue and a red is separate, that is the factual decision. The piece where we struggle with is there's still an interpretation piece here. And there will always be an interpretation piece when it comes to officiating. And now what we do is we put in an extreme lens upon the interpretation piece. And I feel for match officials because their job is just to look at what they see, think of the rules, put those two things together and say the likelihood or in my opinion, and whenever you have an opinion, somebody will always have an opposing opinion. There's been a lot of money that has been invested into VAR technology. I think that it is here to stay. I think the nuances around it have to be ironed out, and we must make it easier for match officials to have the confidence to make the decisions they want to make. And I guess the final bit for me is the experience for the fan. In-stadia experience for fans vary significantly when it comes to VAR versus those that perhaps we see on the TV. And even when you watch it on the TV, you're saying, come on, why is this taking so long? So that the whole process of how we speed it up and then how we inform fans within the stadia. An example would be NFL, where the referee or the umpire talks directly to the fan and says, this is what it is. You might not agree. I'm given a penalty. It's for holding on the opposition and it's number 54. So that fan can straight away understand why it's been given. They might not agree, but at least they know. So, I mean, I think there's legs within VAR. It is here to stay. There is big money on the line if you get a decision right or wrong. And the fact that we have technology is good. We just need to refine what that technology is about and how we use it.
You should also try being a football reporter at a stadium when VAR is going. I don't have a clue half the time. Cammy, you as well. You're often there alongside me. What do you think could make all of this better?
It's a difficult one, Martin. I agree with Gemma. It's here to stay, and we need to deal with it. But we want to make it better as well. I think that's the key thing, that we try and all work together. Again, that's why they put this independent review panel together to try and have a look at as ex-pros, managers, coaches that are on this panel, to try and again give information over to the referees to make this better and get a better product out there for us in Scottish football. But at the moment, for me, I feel there's a lot of subjective decisions. But again, there's ones that I think they're getting wrong that they shouldn't be getting wrong for me personally. When I watch it back on the VAR, I sometimes struggle to get why the referees in the VAR studios have made that decision when there's clear evidence. I mean, you can go to the Hearts one. When Forrest got tripped by Laidlaw, the goalkeeper, there was clear contact. And again, obviously, that was a poor decision. But it's difficult to understand why they get to some of the decisions. Yes, I agree with Gemma that a lot of them are opinionated and subjective, and that's the difficult ones. But there's still some of them that definitely they are getting wrong, that they should be doing better with.
Moving on to the weekend's action, let's start at the top two. Celtic are at home to Kilmarnock on Saturday. Cammy, a team you know very well, of course. How difficult do you think this is going to be for Celtic?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult task for them to manage, and it's probably not a game that Brendan Rodgers would want to face at this moment in time when his team have just been getting over the line a little bit. There's a lot of pressure on them. But again, it's an opportunity for his team to get ahead in this title race and put the pressure on Rangers because they're playing on Sunday. So it's going to be a difficult task because Derek McInnes is a very well organised manager, makes his teams hard to beat. They're very robust. But there's also got a lot of players at the top end of the pitch that can hurt teams now. Matty Kennedy, Danny Armstrong, Marley Watkins. Obviously they've brought in Van Veen. So there's a number of players there that can hurt Celtic, and we know Celtic have conceded the goals at home as well this season. So it's going to be a tough game for them, but one that if they want to get this title wrapped up, they need to win.
Gemma, what have you made of Celtic? I think if you look at results of late, they're actually not too bad, but there feels to be a sort of negativity around them.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you've got, as you say, the results are not too bad, but that's probably one of the issues. Not too bad is not good enough for Celtic. And it's interesting, I listened to a couple of podcasts this week, and I listened to one of the Celtic ones, and there is this thing about talking and being positive around the situation, and the thing that I've heard quite a lot this week is it's now just a 13-game season. It's like we're now back to the beginning, which is really interesting because it's a mentality of don't worry about what's happened before versus a Rangers mentality of look at the momentum that we have now. If you watch a Celtic game and you watch a Rangers game and you watch the players in both of them, there's almost like a liberation in terms of the Rangers team. There's a freedom there, and you sense that there's a patience within the crowd as well. The fans because they see what Clement's doing there. When it comes to Celtic, there's almost like a tension. There's a tension in the way they play, And there's almost like a sigh of relief when they get that goal, or, for example, against Hibs, that last minute penalty. There's this sigh of relief that comes from not just the players and the manager, but the fans as well. So it's a really interesting situation. I think it's really good for the league that we're in this position where we've got some games to go, and it could go either way. Celtic could hit a vein of form. They could get some of their players back into that team that strengthens it up, and we could be in for an exciting run into the end of the season. But it's just how Brendan Rodgers can reset that mindset within the team. And we talk a lot about synergy between not just players and managers, but also between the fans and the club. And they create this one atmosphere. Rangers have that at this moment in time, without a doubt. Celtic, they need to try and get that connection back with their fans, I think.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I've been at Ibrox quite a lot recently, and as you say, Gemma, there's a real synergy, a real feeling that the fans and the team are together, and I think that's helping Rangers a lot. Cammy, Rangers away at Craig Levein St Johnstone on Sunday. I'll be there as well at that one. Never an easy place to go, but overall, Rangers do look to be in a good place, aren't you? Look at the game against Ross County, the number of shots they had, it was incredible.
Yeah, it was a really good performance, and I don't think 3-1 really reflected the game. If anyone watched it, Ross County goalkeeper had a number of saves to make that night. They're in a brilliant place at the moment. As you say, the club look as one, and they're all together. The fans are with the team. They understand the process that's happening, and Philippe Clement's not getting carried away with where they're at the moment either. He knows there's a lot still to get out of this team, and it will be a difficult task on Sunday. We know that the pitch up at Perth isn't great. It's not ideal. It's always a tough place to go. Craig Levein makes his teams hard to beat, and they're fighting for their lives as well. So you've got to take that factor into it. So it's going to be a difficult game, but it's one I would imagine Rangers will navigate their way through. They've been doing that very, very well, and as Gemma said, they're very confident in the moment. They've got a little bit of a swagger the way they're going about their business on the pitch. So I'm fully confident they'll take care of that one on Sunday and get the 3 points that's needed.
Okay, Aberdeen are 9th, Hibs are 8th. Both are on 26 points. They've got exactly the same record: wins, draws, losses and goals. Pretty remarkable, actually. Who needs a win most, Gemma?
I think that Aberdeen probably need a win. I think they will get a win, because I think that Neil Warnock has come in and does what Neil Warnock does fantastically well, which is he is this big character that comes into a club, and by doing that he takes the attention onto him and he takes it off his players, and he gives his players a level of freedom. So, I mean, he said it himself, they were absolutely rotten for the first 25-30 minutes against Motherwell, and then he says, that's my team I see in the second half. I was like, well, we kind of seen that Aberdeen team before this season. Like, we have seen examples of Aberdeen being absolutely rotten for 25-30 minutes and then turning it round. But he says, that's new, that's me, that's us now, that's what we are, that's the type of team I am. You say that to a player, you automatically build their confidence to say, oh, look what we managed to do. Even though we were terrible, look what we managed to do together. And that brings something special. And he has this knack of doing it. And I think you take that and you take, the way in which Aberdeen can play, and you take that into a Hibs team who are up and down like a yo-yo, and you never really know what Hibs team you're going to get. I think Aberdeen, one, they probably do need the win just to give Warnock that extra added incentive to take his players on. That's what he does. But two, I don't see Hibs having any sort of level of consistency that they can come in and stamp their authority on that game either. I think if you're looking at curves, I think Aberdeen are probably slightly more in an upper one, even though results are not necessarily showing that at this moment in time, versus Hibs.
Yeah, it's very interesting indeed. Cammy, I'll ask you about the other side, Hibernian. Nick Montgomery, where do you think he is in terms of his tenure there?
I think he'll be looking back and probably thinking he should have more points on the board than they have. They've got good players, but as Gemma touched on, they're very inconsistent, even inconsistent within games. I see a lot of good stuff from them, but then defensively I think they're very frail. Balls into the box, they aren't strong enough. And I think that's something that Nick Montgomery will need to identify in the summer. I know there's been talk of Paul Hanlon and moving some of the older players on in the summer. And I do think there is a bit of a rebuild there in the summer, because it's going to be a big one for him. There's obviously new investment in the club, so there'll be expectation there. and they're just not doing good enough at the moment. And at this moment in time, I really don't know if they're going to make the top 6, which would be disastrous for Hibs.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
Right, a huge weekend in the SWPL. Rangers taking on Celtic at Ibrox as well, just to add to that. Just 4 points between the two sides, Rangers ahead. The manager there, Jo Potter, I'll be actually speaking to her later. She described the match as iconic and tasty. Is that how you see it, Gemma?
I mean, I've never had those two together in a sentence, iconic and tasty, but sounds about right. And you've got two characters there. You've got Jo Potter and you've got the new Celtic manager, Alena Sadiku. And I was at the Hibs Celtic game on Sunday, and I had a chance to interview her afterwards. And she absolutely is a character, which probably fits right into that kind of iconic and tasty soundbite that we got. But look, yeah, Rangers, you would say, slipped up on Sunday. They drew with Partick Thistle. I always give a shout out to Partick Thistle because what Brian Graham's doing there with the resources he has is absolutely phenomenal. And Celtic took advantage of that in terms of their beating Hibs 3-1, and it was an okay game for Hibs in the first 30 minutes, but after that Celtic just asserted their dominance. They've got Tash Flynn back up, who on loan from Liverpool, who really pushed all the way last year. And as you say, there's 4 points separating them. The last time they met was Sadiku's first game. It was a baptism of fire. They lost 3-2 in the Cup. VAR would have been welcoming that one because there was a few dodgy penalties. But yeah, at Ibrox, you can't ask for more in terms of a top of the table clash, and it's going to be huge. That being said, Glasgow City do what Glasgow City do, which is quietly in the background continue their pressure. So between Rangers at the top 56 points, Celtic 54, and then Glasgow City 50. So it's turning out to be an interesting title race. You probably thought Rangers were running away with it a bit, but that result on Sunday certainly makes it interesting.
Yeah, this is what I love about the SWPL. It's the fact that you just don't know what's going to happen here because Glasgow City aren't out of it at all. I was actually at Ibrox for the game Glasgow City Rangers at the end of last season. That was absolutely
I was at Parkhead, so I was comms on Parkhead,
and
that was absolutely nuts. For the last 5 minutes, nobody knew what was going on. I've never known anything like it. It was phenomenal.
No, I'm a big fan of it all. My two daughters play for Inverness Kelly Thistle, so I need to big up the SWPL at every opportunity I get. Right, Cammy, let's move on quickly. Dundee United travelling to Wraith Rovers. I think we said at the top there, the pressure's all in Wraith Rovers. Is that how you see it?
No, certainly not. I think that's the message from Jim Goodwin, and he's happy to deliver that. But no, listen, the pressure's on Dundee United. We all know that their expectation of getting promoted, they probably looked at, I would say, a smoother ride this season than it has been. There's been a lot of hiccups on the way. They still are obviously in the position they want to be at the end of the season, but it's a big match for both clubs. It's a match that Wraith Rovers can, if they manage to get the 3 points, they can really turn this around and make it a right challenge right to the end. But I think it's going to go all the way to the end because there's no easy game within the Championship. We've known that for many years, that anybody on their day can beat anybody. So it's going to be a great spectacle tonight and something that I'm looking forward to watching, and it'll be interesting to see the outcome of that one.
Yep, can't wait for that. There's so much going on this weekend. Time to wrap things up, though, on the Scottish Football Podcast. My thanks to both you, Cammy Bell and Gemma Faye. Thank you for listening. Wraith Rovers v Dundee United, as we just talked about, is live on Sportscene on the BBC Scotland channel from 7:30. Rangers v Celtic in the SWPL, that's on BBC Alpha from 3 on Sunday afternoon. As ever, Sportsound will bring you all the action live on BBC Radio Scotland, and Sportscene will have your highlights on Saturday, Sunday and Monday evening. Liam McLeod will be back here on the Scottish Football Podcast on Monday morning. And remember, if you haven't done so already, subscribe and follow so you don't miss an episode. Thank you very much for listening and enjoy your weekend's football.
The Scotland Rugby podcast is now available every Tuesday. Join me, Andy Burke and Tom English. Just head to BBC Sounds and subscribe to the Scotland Rugby podcast.
It's just seismic stuff.
There's bucket hats as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is this a rugby podcast or is this a fashion podcast?
Why can't it be a bit of both?
Rugby. Let's get on to rugby.
There's a lot to be excited about.
Today's guest, John McGuigan.
Clubs are at the absolute bedrock of everything Scottish rugby's about.
The Rugby Sports Sound podcast from BBC Radio Scotland.
You cannot help but be so excited. It's going to be the centre of the rugby universe.
BBC Sounds.